If you have seen my UR tier list or have seen my own UR select summon, you know that I actually consider UR Kagayama very highly, or at least not too far away from the SP version of Kagayama. So let's do a full comparison between the two characters now. Now, as usual, I'll split them into different categories just for easy comparison. But there's going to be a category at the very bottom, which is going to be the other sections, which are basically skills that they don't have quite in common with each other, and it's really worth pointing them out as well. Okay. So let's start off with the first category, which is serve. Both of their serve are just going to be a small skill. So basically for UR version, it's going to be 175% multiplier, whereas SP1 is going to be 200. This is the multiplier at the highest level, by the way. For the UR Kagayama one, in case you're wondering, it's actually only 160% multiplier. However, he is able to actually self-buff himself with 15% multiplier and also 70% crit. Whereas for the SP1, it's going to be guaranteed crit when he's surfing. Now, the 70% crit I'll have here for UR Kagayama, that's without any potential. That's literally just from his kit itself. So if you do actually add in potentials, teammates, etc., I will more or less consider this to be guaranteed crit as well. Okay, and when this is guaranteed to be crit, then this is also going to give you a 10% attack technique for the I think it's 6 net crossing when he's surfing, etc. So pretty much for that rally. And then for SP1, it's going to be 60% quick spike multiplier. Now, for the surfing skill alone, I'll probably value them about the same. In all honesty, I don't actually think the multiplier in a surf matters that much. I don't really see, all of a sudden you're going to get surf aces, etc. So I'm not too sure how important is that multiplier difference. And then in terms of the buff itself, attack technique and skill multiplier, they are both some of the more premium buffs. It's quite hard to compare them. But obviously, the number for attack technique is going to be lower. But you also have to consider, for quick spikes, ultimate, etc. You normally start off already with, like a 300% base multiplier. So this 60, even though it's a high number, if you actually put it in proportion, it's probably going to be more or less the same. So on the surfing category alone, I will actually classify UR and the SP not too far away from each other. Now let's talk about the setting one. So for setting one, this is actually going to be a massive difference because for SP1, that's actually an ultimate attack. Therefore, it has very high multiplier, 330%, and also 8 net crossing. For the UR one, it's only going to be 160% multiplier, and obviously because it's no ultimate attack, it's shorter, it's 6 cooldown, and it can also be further reduced when you actually use other skills he has. So for example, his surf will set it up. So I guess in some sense, you are pretty much able to use this every other turn. Whereas for SP Kagayama, you probably will only be able to use his ultimate set every probably 3 times, so every 3 sets. So that's kind of the slight difference you would be able to see there. But obviously, SP1 make up for that with the much higher multiplier. And then also this can also be guaranteed to be crit when it's more than one setter. I forgot to mention it here, but it's the same mechanics. For UR version Kagayama, it's also going to be 70% crit. Okay, so from that perspective, this I will also consider to be more or less guaranteed crit without even the condition of having more than one setter. So on the SP versus UR Kagayama on the setting category, personally, I think SP1 is going to be slightly better, purely because the multiplier is going to be higher. Granted, you will be able to use this a bit less often, but to be able to use a much higher multiplier once every 3 set versus a much smaller multiplier but once every 2 set, I think the Kagayama SP1 is going to win here. Okay. Now let's talk about the buff to the spikers that they're able to provide. For the UR1, he's able to provide 18% quick attack. In comparison to the SP1, this fluctuates a bit because it's based on the number of stacks. However, I'm going to take an average, which is only going to be 14%. So UR1 is actually able to buff slightly higher on the quick attack category. For the awareness, however, UR1 can only provide 45% awareness, whereas the SP1 can actually guarantee to crit. Once again, there's going to be a condition, which is more than one setter. And I'll have to say that if you have to bring, 2 setters, you can very easily bring someone like SP or Kawa, who's very universal and can already guarantee your entire team to crit. So I don't actually think there's that much difference on the crit if you actually factor in the fact that if you do bring an additional setter for your Kagayama, you can probably get that very high consistency in terms of crit as well. Okay, and obviously 45% awareness is actually quite nice in the sense that if your spiker already have some way of self-buff awareness, then this can already make him to very close to 100% spiking awareness as well. Okay. Now, in terms of strength, UR1 is able to provide 105 once you actually have him skill rates and full, etc. The SP1 is only going to be 80% strength, and it's just for quick spikers. However, if that spike is also unblockable, then you can get 40% more. Now, obviously, for UR1, it's not discriminating against quick or power spikers, and also for the UR1, there's kind of like for the SP1, sorry, there's kind of like a range depending on whether or not it's unblockable. I know a lot of the quick spikes are actually unblockable. However, if you also look at the likes of SP Korai, who has a who has a spike ultimate, which can be treated as quick spike, but that's not unblockable, and also some of the other more niche quick spikers as well. Then as a whole, I kind of feel like the strength is going to be more or less the same, because if you have to take the average between 80 and also 120, it's going to come down to about 100 strength as well. And then on top of that, UR1 is actually able to provide 18% attack technique, which the SP1 is not able to provide at all. So overall, in terms of the buff he's able to provide to the spikers, I'll probably say that UR1 is actually able to edge up slightly more than the SP1, purely because it's actually able to touch one extra multiplier category than the SP1. Now, in terms of the other skills they have for UR1, we haven't even talked about his ultimate attack. It's a set dump. I know set dump is not kind of the most useful skills in this game, but it is just a very strong set dump. It's probably the strongest set dump in this game, or one of the strongest set dump. Probably the strongest set dump will be SP Akashi's one, but UR Kagayama one probably have the second strongest set dump in the game, which is nothing to scoff at. And then he's able to reduce cooldown when he uses other skill. It's the same thing I mentioned here. So basically, if you use him to serve or set dump, it will reduce his set cooldown. If you use his set, it will reduce set dump cooldown, etc. And then he also has a permanent self buff of a 14% attack technique and also 20% strength, which is also very, very nice, especially the attack technique part. Now for SP1, he's able to provide 10% strength and also reset team's surfing cooldown when you are surfing. All honesty, surfing cooldown, unless there's some kind of mechanics to that surfing skill, otherwise I don't think it matters that much, and 10% strength is pretty minimal as well. But then the main other buff he's able to provide is that he's able to buff all of the setters, so not just himself, but everyone, all of the setters with 2000 stat, which I'll probably say that's probably about 15 to 20% set stat, and also 40% strength as well. Now, obviously, when you are playing SP Kagayama, you're kind of forced to bring multiple setters, so this is going to be quite beneficial from that perspective. But once again, if you have to compare 40% strength and 20% increase to set versus 20% strength versus 14% in attack, I would say yes, this is higher for sure, but is it that much higher? I'm not too concerned. I'm not too sure about that, especially considering that your Kagayama also have serving skills, etc., which would also attack technique would benefit from. So as a whole, I'll probably say out of all of the other categories, as a whole, SP Kagayama is gonna win slightly more than the UR one, but I wouldn't say it's like a massive power grab either. So that's already a quick rundown, but you guys can probably already get a sense here. So if we actually just talk about all of the categories as a whole, just summarize them. For serving, I'll kind of view them the same. For setting, SP Kagayama is going to be a stronger one, no doubt there. For the buffing ones, to the spiker, I would say UR Kagayama is going to be slightly better. For the other category, I'm going to say SP Kagayama is going to be slightly better. So as a whole, it's sure, I would probably say SP Kagayama is going to be better than UR Kagayama, but is it by a wide margin? Not really. And then the other thing, which I'm not a great fan of this, even though I didn't list this explicitly, is that when you play SP Kagayama, it also kind of forces your team builder in a bit, because you are forced to bring multiple setters. And this is not even like a normal double setter formation where you can sub out the setter for a liberal. The reality is that you actually need both of the setter to be on the court at the same time for you to trigger all of those mechanics. And then that can actually make the rest of the team pretty difficult, because essentially you have to fit in two blockers, one receiver, and also potentially 2 or 3 spikers in all of the 4 remaining slots, which is definitely a lot harder than what you can do with team building for UR Kagayama. And also, obviously, SP Kagayama is very, very much focused on quick spikers, whereas UR version Kagayama, sure, he also slightly buff up quick spikers a bit more with his quick attack buff, but the rest of the kit is all universal, so you can also play him in conjunction with other power spiker without needing to worry too much about team composition, etc. So that's kind of what I do feel like UR Kagayama is not necessarily that much worse than the SP version, and that's kind of why I rated him fairly high in terms of my tier list, and also that was the reason why I decided to summon for him myself. Let me know what you guys think of this comparison, and what are your thoughts between the two versions.